I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. This Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 for our regular meeting. Let's start out. Do we have any discussion about the agenda lineup from the commission? All right. Any public input on the agenda? All right. If not, can I get a motion to approve our agenda?
Otten, approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes, motion carries. Next is our consent agenda items. Any discussion among the board on the consent agenda? All right, if not,
Move for approval?
any public input on the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Schmidt to approve and a second from Commissioner Aaron's. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
All right, yes, motion carries. First item on regular business is to consider a motion to appoint a commissioning agent for the Justice Center. I don't know if Drew, you wanted to talk to this, but basically a commissioning agent is what Tegra Group is recommending that. They are their own third party that basically does a review of the whole mechanical system in the courthouse and make sure everything's functioning the way that it's supposed to, so that we don't end up with a lemon per se. And that is what is being recommended. The cost, the estimate on that, I believe was $70,000. And so I'm asking for approval to go ahead and hire the commissioning agent. Does any commissioners have any questions for me about that?
Does the money come out of the bond?
The money is either gonna come out of the construction budget, or it will come out of the owner contingency. And I don't think that's been figured out yet, but it's in there, and I would recommend it with the level of all the electrical and stuff that's going in there. And I know when I talked to Julie Dotson-Rod, who's our project manager for Tegra, she said that it's been very beneficial in, other projects to have that extra eye checking all of those things out to make sure they're working properly before we sign off on them.
And are they involved 24/7 whenever you guys meet, whenever they meet, or are they on site in the trailer?
They'll be on site doing their work. They did do, they put it out for bids, and IMEG, I think, was the low bid on that.
IMEG was the low bid and also the recommended commissioning agent due to the fact that DLR is our architect, so it'd be a true third-party review instead of DLR reviewing it themselves. It'd be a true third-party.
Right.
Yes. Madam Chair, I'd recommend that you go ahead and hire that agent.
First, I'll take some public input on it if there is
Excuse me.
any. All right, and then Schmidt, you want to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
All right.
Yes.
And is there a second then?
I'll second.
Got
Otten.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes, motion carries. All right, next up, Sherry, good morning.
Good morning, Sherry Lund, Lincoln County Auditor. I'm coming to you today regarding the Public Defender Committee that we put together at the beginning of January. So I'm just going to go through this review, and then we'll have to see if we have any questions. So what is the Public Defender's Office? Legal counsel provided to individuals who cannot afford an attorney, and they have a right to a counsel when facing potential jail penalties as guaranteed by the Constitution of the state. And it's underneath these 4 rules. The South Dakota law and public defender. There's 3 options for a public defender. We currently operate under the 3rd option. We can establish our own public defender's office, or they can court appoint them. which is not feasible due to the caseloads. Or like I said, the third option is what we currently do. We contract with attorneys licensed to practice law. South Dakota is the last state that does not receive funding from the state for indigent defense. Pennsylvania just started paying for theirs. Also in 2024, the legislation allocated $3 million in order to reimburse the cost of providing counsel for indigent defense, which covers about 12% of the total cost across the state. This would be the budget request for the judicial as it sits. What we did on this is the public defender contract is what the actual contract would be for the two offices that we have. Otherwise, the rest of them was based on a 3-year average for an increase. You can see that,
Can you
The-
blow that up a little bit?
I don't think that I can. Let's see if I can go back. Now I've lost it.
Sorry.
Nope, you're fine. I do have, here, we can do it this way.
How about up on the top
Nope,
there
I
with
got it
the
right
plus
here.
and minus?
Nope, I got it right there.
There we go.
There we are.
Thanks.
All right, so yeah, this is just the expense parts of it. With the averaging, what we came up with was $2,065,980 for, basically the public defender expenses. That includes the conflicts, juveniles, A&Ns. With the PDO office, some of those would be absorbed within it, but not all of them. We'd still have conflicts. Let's see. Currently, we have contracts with 2 firms in the county. If the county continues to practice, there will have to be a 3rd contract added because they are exceeding their maximums per the contracts. There are 2 options for the creation of a public defender's office. We can create our own here within and have it in-house, or we can combine. In this option, we would combine with Minnehaha County and their public defender's office. We have had those discussions with Minnehaha County, but we have not gotten any kind of what it's gonna cost or what it looks like to do that with Minnehaha County at this point. We would need to, first and foremost, we'd set up an advisory committee that would establish the public defender's office and basically manage it. Or the option would be to create a joint public defender office. In this case, it would be with Minnehaha County. And, oops, again, we don't have that information. At this time, the committee was recommending to do our own public defender's office. Because we don't have the numbers for Minnehaha County, it's still open, but we are getting heavy into the budget, so I think we need to figure out what we're going to do with it. All right, so, oops, I did it again. Anyway, so in 2026, what I have, all right, sorry, all right, so we were thinking with the personnel budget with 1 public defender, 1 deputy, a law office assistant, and a receptionist, the preliminary budget for the personnel would be $577,639. I did look at what it would be when we go into 27, with the hopes of having 3 additional attorneys, 2 law office assistants, and a receptionist. We're looking at about a personnel based on the current COLA and step that we budget of $1,472,113,000 or $113.
What was
For
that
wages.
number again, Sherry?
$1,472,113. That's about $200,000 over what our current contract costs. And this would be what we would propose going into 2027 with would be the 3 attorneys, or a total of 5 attorneys, 3 law office assistants, and 2 receptionists.
When you
And-
say it's over $200,000, what we present have,
And that's just for the contract.
but that just doesn't count the every increase that we have to have about every so often.
No, well, and we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what the contract increase would be right now for the 2 agencies that we are with. So it's gonna be much higher than what it is now.
It may be a wash
So-
before you know it.
So the contracts are the 1.2,
Yes.
and then on
And that's
top
through
of that,
2026.
okay, and then on top of that, what are we spending for hiring outside counsel? Outside of the contracts, since we're over our numbers.
Yep, so if we look at this one again, all these, the conflicts, the juveniles, A&Ms, these are what we're hiring outside of. So at this time, we have 240 and, well, budgeted, we have 158, but, or paid so far in conflicts, 24,000 in juveniles, 31,000 in A&Ms. So again, some of those costs would be absorbed in the PDO office, but there would still be some conflicts and other cases that would have to be outside of the PDO office.
But that's about an additional 600,000.
Sherry, you said the committee is proposing, when you get up to full speed, 2 receptionists, 3 paralegals, and how many attorneys?
Well, it'd be 5 attorneys, including the public defender. There'd be 3 law office assistants and 2 receptionists. And that would be with what we were, when we were talking to the 2 people that we conflict with now, or that we have the contracts with now, they thought that that would be an adequate amount to offset where we're at, if that makes sense.
So, yeah, it does to me. So I just want to make clear here, the folks that you were soliciting input from think that full speed, 100%, this office is up to speed and manned at current levels with that 5 attorney plus the public defender and then these 5 other support personnel.
4 attorneys and the public defender.
4 attorneys?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would basically be considered full staff, fully staffed?
Yep,
Okay.
for 2027, yep.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously, we don't know, we'd have to keep evaluating it over, just as we do any other office, but they
Yeah.
thought that would offset what we're paying in contracts. They would be able to handle the caseload.
Yeah, I think for me, what I'm trying to get at is just what constitutes fully staffed. Obviously, that doesn't take into consideration future growth, but that's another conversation for
Right.
another day.
Right,
The real issue here is once you create this office and do away with the contracts, you're all in.
right.
So you
And
got,
that's where they're saying that
right.
this would be a great start.
Sherry, when's the contract up? Is it 26?
End of 26.
The end of 26.
That's why we were thinking to have it fully staffed, and we could just use the places that we've got now for a little bit of overflow if we had to.
Was there any consideration or discussion given to workforce and how easy or how difficult it will be to recruit and retain public defender attorneys?
Yep.
And what are the results of that conversation?
Same as they are with anything else, Joel. I mean, we're gonna hope that we get them in here and hope that the wages that we're offering are enough to bring them down.
Right?
If we,
What
this
was that,
might,
Carrie?
go ahead, Carrie.
No, I was just saying, we did look at what it would cost to lure somebody away from a current office. We didn't necessarily go local. We went a little
Yeah.
higher with our numbers, if that makes sense.
It does.
Have there been any discussions with these other 2 contract offices about helping us dovetail into this until we can?
Yeah.
get it fully staffed, or they can still contract if we need additional help perhaps, but,
And they were both on board for that.
okay, so there's nothing preventing us from doing that.
No.
So bottom line for taxpayers here is a fully staffed office in 2027 will be 1.47 million, and we're currently spending 1.78, expected to spend 2 million.
Right, but the 2 million, the 2 million is also for expert witnesses, and that includes everything under that budget.
Yeah, so those expenses will
The-
never change.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, that will
so-
still be the same.
So really, it's a difference of 1.78 minus 1.47. Is that essentially kind of what it boils down to with the numbers here?
I was looking at that too.
No, it'd be,
That's what
it'd
I'm
be
trying to
the,
figure out.
it'd be
Yeah.
the 1.2 because well, yes, if you picked up some of the others, but again, I don't know how much of the conflicts, juveniles and A&Ns you would get out of there.
Well, I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, maybe you can tell me what the committee talked about. Our public defender's office will now take on those A&N and juvenile cases, and that they will all be taken by the PDO.
That would be the hope with the exception of the conflicts.
Right, correct.
Yep.
And we're always gonna have conflicts, and at first there will be more conflicts,
Yep.
but then as we hire people on, and depending what office they come from or where they were previously representing, those conflicts will become marginal.
That is the whole goal.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, that's typically how this
Yep.
works. It's just like when you get a new judge, they get a lot of conflicts, and then it kind of narrows itself down.
Yep.
So, you know, with time. I'm just trying to figure out here what the cost savings are, but also I'm trying to look at it as, you know, maybe there's some initial cost savings, and I'm wondering if the committee had any discussions, is there any booby traps, or is there any unforeseen expenses that would come about with regard to when you create this new office? And at first, we're like, oh, this looks great, and then down the road, we're like, holy crap, we didn't anticipate or budget for that.
Well, I think we kind of looked at what it would cost for, in the presentation we had for the, let's see. So about $15,000 for the software. You know, so we've kind of looked at that. Otherwise, I don't know that there'd be any, it's personnel.
And wasn't there like, I mean, we walked through the sheriff's office to
Yep,
see
and
how
that
that
would-
would transition, and there may be some
Yep.
fairly minor.
Yeah, as far as,
We-
we could probably use the furniture that's down there, so there wouldn't be that expense, conference room. I mean, so, what's down there would stay down there and be used.
There
So,
was some talk, I know, about putting up a wall in a
yeah,
certain area, but it wasn't a ton of
yeah,
renovation.
and I mean, that could be a temporary wall, it could be, you know, it's,
Yeah, my understanding was all the furniture is staying. isn't
Yeah.
it? So
Yep.
that's,
and this
Sure.
is kind of what we looked at for the spacing needs. When everybody transitions, put the sheriff's office up in the state's attorney's office, give them that. Then the PDO could go down in the sheriff's office, because then they would have their own entry. The security glass would already be set up there for them to have people, their own elevator, and this would prevent their folks from having to come into the courthouse. It'd be all over there. So we thought about that as well for spacing, is where we would put them, because that's always the biggest problem.
Sherry, maybe you covered this, but when you're anticipating adequate coverage, was consideration given to our growth? Because we have a lot of people moving in all the time. I mean, was that ever looked at? Because, you know, our population's, we're going to be kicking 80,000 people here in a
Well,
not too distant
and-
future.
Yeah, I think that we looked at, when we were talking, this would be adequate coverage for now.
For now.
But, what do we,
What?
growth?
5
So-
years from now, what will that be like? Yeah.
Right, right.
Well, and I think once you actually have somebody in there that, to head up the office, they're gonna have a better read and finger on what they actually
Yeah,
need.
and that was one of the reasons to set the public defender and attorney in there in 26. Let them get in there, get the feel for it, start building their cases or whatever, and then go from there.
And maybe this is a question for the state's attorney's office and for Drew. I think right now there's 10 or 10 attorneys, excuse me. Is it 9 or 10 in the state's attorney's office? And you'll have 4 attorneys plus. I'm not insinuating that we need parity between prosecutors and defenders because there are differences and there's other things that occur. But are there any concerns about either the appearance of a lack of parity or, I mean, was the analysis done using the ABA case
Yeah.
handling model?
It was, and so we have 8, well, currently we have 7 criminal attorneys, soon to be 8, that we're currently recruiting for. We have 2 civil attorneys, obviously. Those civil attorneys, we act as the attorneys for the
Right.
public defender's office for contracts and things like that. So that's something that that a burden that PDO wouldn't have. So from, apples to apples, we think it's pretty comparable. Because you're always gonna have private retained attorneys that won't need the PDO or we'll say attorneys. So we think that's fair enough.
Okay, good. So we've run the traps on that, and there's not going to be anybody coming in saying, "Oh, you guys are lowballing this estimate here," and you're coming in with a realistic estimate of what it takes to run into. Because just so the public knows, I mean, I think everybody in this room knows, but people are listening, is not every single criminal case is handled by a paid public defender. So I wanted to have that conversation to make sure the public understands that as well.
All right, so what do we do next? We need board action on a recommendation on how to proceed. Again, our recommendation would be to create our own PDO office, and we haven't heard back from Minnehaha County. But I think as far as budget purposes, do you want to move forward, get these numbers in the budget, see how it looks, go through the hearing? Because there's a little bit of work that has to be done to get this going before 2026.
I mean, for me, I guess, I can support creating our own public defender office. And we're gonna have to dovetail some of it probably with the contracts that we currently have. So to me, it's maybe a little bit of a hybrid. I think if there's room, to work with Minnehaha County, certainly we can be open to that. And, maybe down the line when we get set up, maybe we are able to even help, out some with conflicts in Minnehaha County because they have that same problem that we do as well. So I think just for budgeting purposes and the situation that we're in, we need to move a little quicker on getting somebody set up than, then still welcome Minnehaha County to, chime in and give us their input on it, certainly. So to me, it's a little bit of a hybrid, is what I'd like to see happen, at least initially. Those are just my thoughts.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I believe that in our long-term interests, this is where the county should go with the growth that we are experiencing and will continue to experience. We've just about played out the hand of hiring out, and I like the idea of the independence that we have and able to determine our costs better, I think. Our relationship with Minnehaha County on many levels that we've had previous experience on has been very, very good. But on this one, if we can find some means of collaboration on some issues, that's fine. But I'm in favor of having our own independent defender's office.
Do you want public input before a motion?
Well, I think we've got to have a resolution in front of us before we can take action. I think this was mainly for discussion purposes, but are you looking for a motion today?
I think what I kind of wanted was do you want me to put it in the budget so that when we go with the provisional budget, the numbers are there so we can see them?
Sure.
I mean,
Yes.
the rest of it is gonna come, this is strictly for the budgeting.
Right, do you want a motion to that effect, or do you want, or do we need to have that resolution in front of us
I
first?
think we can do the motion just for the budget purposes, then we'll move on with the resolution after.
Okay, all right, very good. So,
I would like to see the numbers. Yeah, I'd like to see the budget proposal.
Yep.
Because what I'm still a little fuzzy about is, I understand we're gonna come in at 1.47 in fiscal year 2027, calendar year 2027. What I don't understand though is what the contracts are gonna cost on top of that yet. And so what I'd like to see is a proposal for budget year 2026 and then a mock-up for, I guess we call it a mock-up, but a proposal for budget year 2027 as well. So, because what we're really doing when we vote on the creation of the office is we're going all in. And I don't really care, I care about the cost for 2026, but those are going to be preliminary. And that's not really what the true cost of the office is. The true cost is what it looks like in budget year 2027, which is going to be when we're at 100% staffing and hitting the ground running. So I want to see those numbers before voting on the creation of the office.
wasn't that the 1.4?
Yeah, that would, the personnel would be the 1.4, but I understand what Joel's saying
Yeah.
because we would have
Sure.
a contract with the other two people. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, there would be more or less an overflow. It wouldn't be the 900,000 that we have with the one and the 200,000 with the other one.
Well, and what I'm thinking in my mind is, are we gonna, once we create this office then, are they gonna come down and are they gonna ask for a vehicle? And then are they going to ask for a private investigator?
Well,
And
they
are-
can do
and-
that later on, but I would say the
Well,
first year they're not getting it.
Yes, we will do that later on, and I think what my constituents want to know is what the cost is later on. Because they know that government, not only in this state, but everywhere, likes to create a program, and then once more government gets created, then those government personnel come in and ask for more government. So what I think taxpayers want to see is what is the true cost of program creation when it's operating at 100%. And that's what I'd like to see.
So with the budget, I mean, if you put the numbers into the budget process that we have preliminarily and then project out what those things look like for 2027, I think that's what Commissioner Aaron's is looking to see as far as our budget discussions, but do we, and I'll ask for consensus to at least add the numbers to the budget for budget discussions, but first, if commissioners are done asking questions right now, I'll just open it up for public input on the agenda item before we take any action. Is there any public input on this agenda item? All right, if not, then I'm looking for a motion just to add the numbers to our current draft budget.
I'll move to add the numbers to the draft budget for review.
Second, Otten.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the commission? All right, if not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes, motion carries. All right, next we have a motion to authorize the chair to sign an engineering grant application. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Terry Floyd, Highway Department. I have before you this morning, it's a grant application for preliminary engineering for structure 42-080-193. This is located on County Road 117. And this is going to be through the Bridge Improvement Program through the Department of Transportation. So I think pricing on it, I have it in next year's budget to do it, so grant applications are due the 1st of August, I believe. Total project is gonna be about $74,000, as you see there. Grant request is gonna be about 60, and our cost is gonna be about 15,000, so.
Anybody have any questions for Terry? All right, if not, any public input on this agenda item? All right, can I get
Move
a?
for approval, Madam Chair.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve from
Second.
Schmidt, Done a second from Aaron's. Alicia, will you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, John, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Rombo, Building Superintendent. So I'm here today to discuss, as you know, we have formed a committee to determine what we will do with the old courthouse. And one of the first steps of forming that committee was to reach back out to the architectural company that did the structural assessment back in 2020 and see what it would cost for them to refresh their numbers, so we can utilize those newer numbers to help make this decision. So I've done that, and that's Architectural Incorporated is who I worked with. And as it turns out, in discussion with them, some of the electrical stuff that I thought was probably in that earlier assessment was not included. And so there'll be a little more of an in-depth research for the mechanical side of the world for them to refresh their numbers. So they're coming back with a higher number than I was anticipating, and what they're saying is they would need about $10,000. They would be willing to do a do not exceed of $10,000 and just bill us as the time that they put into it. But I think it will probably reach that 10 grand pretty quickly. As you can see from the scope of the work that's listed here, that would be a one-site visit from architectural, mechanical, and electrical, and one meeting with me and the commissioners of whoever they would need to meet with, and then attendance of one task force meeting to review with the updated cost estimates, and then of course then they would respond to any questions to the county and task force as needed. So again, the work did not include, so some of the electrical, like for instance, everything's kind of all cobbled together down in the steam boiler room for the electrical panels. If we're gonna do this, we need to make that improvement, and would be possibly putting a whole new panel system in the basement. And that type of stuff was not included in that original assessment.
So, question, John, and I'm just bringing this up because of my experience thus far with architectural companies, in getting cost estimates from an architect. They have not been, all that accurate. So who else is gonna look at this? I mean, I understand if they're the ones that say, hey, this is the work that needs to be done, but are they gonna work with somebody else to actually get a cost for what this is gonna be? Because I'm just guessing their numbers are not gonna be in line with what the actual cost is.
That's my fear too.
So-
I really don't have an answer for you on that.
They would need to partner with somebody else to get us a cost estimate. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to seeing what needs to be done, but I think the actual cost estimate needs to come from somebody that actually does those estimates and bid work and things of that nature. For instance, like with our courthouse, we have our architects, and then we have Henry Carlson that did the RFPs, and then we got the numbers. So are you looking at something similar to that?
I guess I'm gonna make an assumption, and I know that's never good to do, but that they would have reached out to some of those type firms to help come up with this number.
Well, they're not gonna do it for free.
Correct. That's why, again, I think that's why it's a $10,000 fee to do that, I think, but,
I would need that clarification before I voted on this myself
okay.
to approve it.
Yeah, let's just get a clarification.
I mean,
I
so-
think that's good for everyone,
Yep.
is just find that out.
I'm more than willing to have, Andrew from Arking come in and help sell what he wants out of this. I wasn't quite honestly sure if he would do that for free. I assumed he would, but,
Yeah, I don't need the sales pitch.
Yeah.
I need to know that we're gonna get good numbers.
So you want me to reach back out to them and basically say, what are you gonna do to guarantee that these numbers are fairly accurate?
Yeah, and they're probably not gonna do that, but.
You know, Tiffany, to your point, was a very good one. If they have not done that, then I look at Hugadorn Construction sitting right here in Canton that could come in and validate, some of that stuff.
I was gonna say the same thing. You have
Yep.
Hugadorn come in.
Right.
You have G.A. Johnson come in. They do that bid work all the time. And, I mean,
Basically, just give them the package that we were given before and say,
Wait,
look, this is
Yeah, I mean,
what.
I think Arc Inc. can figure out the structurals, like, here's the stuff that needs to be done, and it has been 5 years, and there's been a flood, and so maybe there are some other things that have changed from that 2020 report. I just don't know that we should be getting our cost estimate from the architect. That's the only point I'm
So-
making.
Correct, and I will tell you that from the scope of the work, they were gonna utilize the structural issues from before and not have a structural engineer involved in that $10,000. They were gonna basically say, the structural stuff there is probably in the same condition that it was 5 years ago.
And that's true. And I'm just gonna use the
Okay.
highway department as an example. We thought we had what it was gonna be, and then we got the estimate, it was almost $1 million, and we were initially told it was like 350, if memory serves me, and it was more than double. So I would like the most accurate numbers possible if we're gonna spend even a dime.
Okay, I have no problem reaching out to those different companies and see what they're willing to do.
yeah, and just so everyone knows, the reason John put this on here is we held 2 meetings of the courthouse review committee. And there's like a dozen people on the committee, and they all unanimously wanted to know, in order to make a assessment or determination of what to do with the old courthouse building, once it gets vacated by the courts, they all wanted to know what kind of cost are we looking at? And me and Commissioner Schmidt are both on the committee, and we both said the same thing too. So that's the genesis of this agenda item is, but unfortunately, nobody gives free estimates or free bids anymore. You gotta pay just to have somebody come in to tell you what your renovation, it's not like when you remodel your home. When you're dealing with these commercial buildings, people don't just come in for free and give you a free estimate anymore. So that's why we gotta pay somebody to actually take the time to go through it and
Well,
tell us what our numbers are.
and that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
We've done this with Arc Inc. already. And I don't want them to give us a 1 million cost estimate and we go ahead and say, okay, and then it's 3 million or 4 million. And that doesn't include any of the other renovation that would need to be done in the space. That's
Correct.
totally just the structural and mechanical aspect of it.
Right.
So John, if you took what we have from 2020, the structural part, I mean, there's lots of parts here in this thing, as you know. And you went to Hugadorn and said, here's the story, here's what we know are deficiencies so far, and had them come in, are you comfortable with that? I mean, you're the one that's going to be driving this thing.
I'm absolutely comfortable with that, but I also know that it might be difficult getting them here. It's a busy time of year for those type of companies. And I don't want to keep kicking this can down the road, but I will absolutely reach out to them and I'll see what numbers I can get. But, they're going to give us a fluff number, you know what I mean? Because they'll want to actually come out and bid it for real at some point, but they're going to probably give us, a number with a little bit of elevation, I would think.
Between.
Which is fine, but, I just know that from my experience, but of course, we're talking, I'm gonna put a wall up or something, and it might take me a month to get 3 different companies to come in here and bid that. It's just, they're busy, and there's no guarantees with this project kind of a thing. I'm sure they'll hope that they get it in the end, but, that's part of it, is they could invest quite a bit of time to not get any money back out of it.
But John, if you went to Arc Inc. and they have already hired or have somebody that is going to be able to give you hard estimates, that is not an architectural estimate, it is a builder's estimate. You could find that out as well.
Oh, yeah, I'd definitely reach out to them and see where they would base their numbers.
Okay.
No, I think this is good because then, yeah, we may be a little behind the power curve by a month or two, fine. But we need to know what it looks like before the next budget season. So maybe these things, maybe, I stress maybe, it gets included in the next budget year, what needs to be done. Because a lot of decisions will be based upon what the costs are probably.
Absolutely.
John, you and I talked, have you been able to get any headway on companies that would be of, if the decision was made to take that building down, what the cost would be? Have you got anything?
I have not reached out to,
Super-
no, I've not reached out to those other companies.
Okay.
I think the original cost, when we were looking at it as part of the courthouse project, was $750,000. At least that's what they had built into it
And then
initially.
500 for something else?
So the general work was about $750,000, with between the demolition and building the facade. But there again, the architectural design, to make it all work on paper was about half that again. So, close to $300,000. So we're probably a little over $1 million.
$1 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of what Arc Inc. was also including in their thing is to also give us that type of a number and estimate too, but.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for some clarification on where the pricing's coming from, I guess.
Correct, I understand.
So I'm not ready to move on it, but that doesn't mean somebody else isn't ready to move on it.
I think your
so.
point is well made, and I do think we should come back with numbers, because I think, Joel, you'll probably agree that when we finally get down to all of the cost of this thing, which won't, I mean, this is going to be a cost number that we're going to have to deal with. So on the one hand, you have the replacement of the building itself versus the rehabbing of the exterior and all of the material that goes in, like the electrical thing you were talking about, but also the internal modifications that have to be made so it's more usable, because it's pretty chopped up with courtrooms right now. And if we're going to make that into a usable facility, we may have to do several modifications internally. So we got a lot of numbers to assimilate, and we finally get down to, do we save or do we replace? And then we'll look at the numbers. And there are going to be some good ones on there.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised at how the members of the committee looked at all of this. It was not from a point of view of nostalgia or we've always had a courthouse there, so we should keep it. I think the number one thing that I kept hearing from the committee members is that's a lot of square footage to replace. And new construction would clearly be the most expensive. And then probably the middle option is remodel, and then probably the cheapest option is demolition, which nobody was in favor of removal of the old building. But the other thing that all the committee members all gravitated back towards was they would like to see the numbers.
All right, so do you want to bring this back and put it back on the agenda when we have some clarification
Can we
on?
just table this thing until further?
Yes,
I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion, they sure can, and I'll certainly take some public input on it today before we make a decision, but does anybody else have questions for John? All right, is there any public input on this agenda item? All right, then,
Madam Chair, I would move that we table this request until John gets more numbers, from actual numbers on the cost.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, we have a GIS work session. Good morning, Dave.
Morning, Dave.
Morning, Commissioners. Dave Dixon, GIS Director. So it's kind of a period of transition for us in the GIS office. We have been dealing with some deprecated software and server. And as part of that, the software provider that we use recommended that we move forward to some new software and server products. John was a great steward of the office and of public resources and prepared this budget with that in mind. There's a consulting firm, ProWest, that deals with these sorts of transitions with local governments throughout the country and enables us to continue to do the day-to-day operations of the GIS office while working with us and our IT office to make these transitions as seamless as possible. I should note parenthetically that in working with ProWest thus far, they've just remarked that they really haven't seen an IT office work so cohesively with the GIS office. So I think that speaks to the great job that our IT office is doing. But because of this additional cost to transition to this new server and software, I think we were about 3.5% higher than we have been in the past for our budget.
And Dave, is that software gonna come out of, will it be in your budget or will that be part of Jake's budget, the server and software?
So the server and software, I believe, comes out of Jake's budget. And then our budget is just this consulting firm that helps us transition to those.
Has he already worked those numbers into his budget?
I believe so, yeah. So as far as the software is concerned, I don't know that there's additional costs there. Just in the transition process is where the installation and stuff is, I think, where those costs are coming.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave?
You mentioned, Dave, that this ProWest will help you continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were kind of up against a wall with the current software that we had. For security reasons and just the way that the software was moving, it was time to upgrade so that we could continue to provide the services that we provide. And I anticipate that we'll even be able to work more closely with other offices and facilitate additional efficiencies here in the county with the new software provided.
Anybody have questions for Dave? All right. Any public input on Dave's presentation? All right, thank you. All right, next item, security at our facility here and security out at the Justice Center. Betty, are you going to tee that up for us?
I am. We've gone back and forth, and I've heard that our entrance security is going away once the Justice Center opens. Because of laws in effect, we are not compelled to have the security here at the courthouse. And I think Drew's gonna come up and talk about the laws, but Minnehaha administration does not have security to get into their building either because of the laws that are coming through. But we live in a day and age that we are not Mayberry anymore, as you can tell all across the United States. What's been happening with violence against just ordinary people not including the people that are working in buildings. So after Drew comes up to talk about his, I know Sheriff Swenson told me that to keep this, it's going to be about a $200,000 cost annually to keep this. But again, I look at it as nobody's talked to the employees, and so what I'm requesting is action that either IT or HR, both of them do a public survey on how safe they would feel if this goes away. And so that's my request, is that we do an employee survey and a public survey of how safe they would feel if that goes away. So I'll leave it to you, Drew.
Morning, Drew DeGroat, Deputy State's Attorney, State's Attorney's Office. Commissioner Otten asked me to just give a brief overview this morning of what laws are currently in place and the ones that are going into effect. Currently in place right now, 221424 bans the firearm, any firearm within UJS facilities. So right now, we're actually sitting in a courtroom, as some of the commissioners know. This courthouse is so intertwined with UJS, so that's why we have security here, prohibit the use of firearms or carrying of firearms in the courthouse. Once UJS vacates the building, one law that is already in effect, and this is why Minnehaha County doesn't have a security checkpoint, would be 718A 36, prohibits the county from regulating concealed carry on any county grounds. It specifies no ordinances, but then it says any regulation that circumvents the ordinances can't disallow any carrying of firearms, because we are a constitutional carry state. What has come into effect on July 1st would be 71835, which prohibits the county from regulating any county employee from carrying firearms. There are certain limited circumstances where we can regulate that, but that would limit the ability of the county to regulate any county employees from concealed carry on any county grounds. Happy to answer any other questions, but Commissioner Otten just asked me this morning to give a brief overview of the statutes.
You know, Drew, my day job takes me to a lot of different courthouses around South Dakota. And very few, if any, have security. You got Minnehaha, you got Pennington, and then Lincoln County here. Those are just three, but those are when there's access to the courthouse, when there's a judge there. But most courthouses, just for regular people who want to come in and buy their license plates and pay their bills, there is no security. And what I'm struggling with here is there some kind of elevated threat level here in Lincoln County that doesn't exist in Turner or Union or McCook? I don't think so. I'm probably being a little facetious, but I'm interested in facts over feelings. And I understand that some employees may feel threatened, but our state legislature passed these laws now that actually allow people a constitutional carry. It's very similar to this debate over whether school teachers should carry firearms or not, which is a whole nother kettle of fish. But I think what I'm interested in is you look at the broad mainstream of South Dakota, and I think people say to themselves, I'd like to walk into my county courthouse without security. And so I just don't understand, unless there's some elevated threat level here where somebody is actively targeting Lincoln County employees, I just don't see why we would spend another $200,000 for security.
I'd have to defer to Chief Deputy
Yeah.
Brown on any threat levels,
Yeah.
I guess.
So those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Drew.
I guess, if our sheriff's office is gonna be in this building, they have a presence here already. The camera system that we have is awesome, I think, and covers everything that needs to be covered. I think that's monitored pretty carefully in any event throughout the building, even after the security, people go through security. So I can support, it doesn't make sense to me if I can bring in a weapon in my handbag or whatever to come over to the administration building, that, you know, a person's gonna go through security because the current security is looking for weapons and that sort of thing, but we can't regulate it. So it seems a little counterintuitive to me to keep it there. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I remember when we built this building, and we had this huge controversy about whether to put security in. And I was always in favor, other commissioners were not, and we finally put it in. We had a lot of people were opposing this because they thought it was an imposition, but it soon became a very comfortable relationship. And I struggle with the idea, and I understand, I agree with what Commissioner Aaron's and you have said about having a sheriff here and having a presence, but the $200,000 is $200,000, and I don't know, I struggle with the idea of safety and working in an environment that provides that extra layer of security that they don't have to deal with. But to Joel's point, I think the majority, if you took across our state, Joel, I don't think that there's more than 4 or 5 total courthouses that have any security at all. So, and we get by, so I'm on an ambivalent state right now.
Well, and Commissioner Schmidt, there's even courthouses with judges in them that do not have security.
Yeah, I
You know,
don't have any.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That should just give you an indication of where regular, ordinary South Dakotans, what they think about the threat level.
And I brought this up because there was, some people said, yes, it was staying, other people said it was going. And so I just wanted the public to know that once the Justice Center opens, that the security out front will be gone because it will be an administrative building, not a courthouse, even though it's still named as the courthouse. So I just wanted clarity from the public and from the commission of why it was intending to go away. And $200,000 is a big stretch in the budget. And that came directly from Sheriff Swenson. So I understand the laws, I understand constitutional carry, but I want it to be clear that the public knew that this was going to go away and the employees themselves knew it was going to go away. So that's why I brought this, not that, again, it's a security thing for me just because of what's been happening across the whole United States, not just Lincoln County. So I guess I'm looking forward to public comment.
Yeah, and I think about this and I think, would it be good to know who's walking around in our building with a gun, whether it's an employee or, a civilian that comes in to get new license plates. The sheriff runs his office, and I'm not gonna speak for the sheriff, but I don't know, we're not getting a request that they wanna know that information. I mean, if they did, I think they'd be asking to keep it there, but they're not. So, do you wanna make any comment about it?
Sure.
I mean, I'm just welcoming you to if you want. I don't want to put you on the spot too bad.
Chad Brown, Sheriff's Office. We're kind of in the middle on this. There's pros and cons both ways. Cost, safety, both sides of it. With the new law, we think it's going to be, it's going to really restrict what we can stop from coming in the building. We will still be in the building. We still do have safety procedures in place. We got a lot of equipment we bought over the years to help with the security from, cameras to different systems. So we'll still be walking around and still have a presence in the courthouse.
Yeah, my question goes to more like, is there some value in knowing who's walking around our courthouse with a weapon, be it a gun, a knife? So you know in advance? I mean, does that, I mean, you're gonna have to have somebody upstairs then watching,
But keeping track of everyone,
right?
you know, how are we gonna do that? Keeping track of people that come in, if they have a firearm or not,
Well, that's kind of my point.
yeah, it'd be tough.
Sure. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Any public input on this agenda item?
Linda Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. Betty, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I can understand people that have been working here and this has been a secure site. You know, and they know, you know, people are walking through security. And so when you take that away, I can understand that there may be some level that they're a little apprehensive. But, you know, I walk into Minnehaha administration office multiple times, and they have a whole lot more people, and a whole lot more people that actually, you know, have no reason to be in the courthouse, you know. So I see that working. I worked in you know, in my work environment, you know, there is always people coming and going in any building, any big city you go to, you know, a department store, you know. We have to practice our own individual safety considerations and be on the lookout. And with the sheriff's office here, and they'll be coming and going, I just think it gives that sense of security. You know, the only thing that I could say that might be a thing is, I don't know if the sheriff's office is here all the time after hours when you do your evening sessions. But, you know, maybe they could swing by and check on things while they're here. That would be my only thing, that during the day, everybody's here, and, you know, if somebody's carrying, they just might save your life. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public input on this agenda item? All right. Commissioners, do you want to take any action on this?
Again, I think my thing was just that the public knew and the employees knew that the front entrance would be gone after the Justice Center opened. So I'm totally good with what the Sheriff's Department said and what Joel said and you said about others, and especially with Minnehaha's administration building being open again. So I'm fine with that.
All right, then we don't need action on that.
Do not.
All right, very good, then we'll keep moving. Next item on our agenda, that is Betty and Doug. Used vehicle discussion. Who wants to head that up?
Doug, do you want to start?
Well, I guess I don't know where to start on that, other than we're looking into the amount driven and if a used vehicle will work, you know, as opposed to a new one. Betty put together quite a list of stuff here. It all has to do with, you know, looking things over better and looking at what a person can buy them for and what the application is.
And this totally came from public comment about all the vehicles that we were asking for in the budget. And so Sherry sent me a list of the vehicles that we had. I put it together in an Excel spreadsheet. I think there are extra copies up here so that you could, I put it in an Excel so that people could see it. We ended up, I took off all the heavy equipment, I took off all the trailers, I took off the people that were going out on the little carryalls and spraying weeds. I took all of that off and just left it with vehicles. And so it turned out to me that we had 72 vehicles, and then I divided it out on the next view about the different departments, what they had for vehicles. And it was done by the departments, it was done by the amount of coverage, and then the 5-year maintenance costs. And so I guess we were just trying to figure out whether we were, trying to, there were several comments about, buying used vehicles. But again, at the very bottom, on the 4-H report that we had on her budget, she forgot to put in there that they did, instead of trying to buy a new vehicle, they did go and get the, one of the surveys. They did get one of the vehicles that they moved from the sheriff's surplus to them, and then immediately they had a $4,800 transmission fix that they didn't even have it, I don't think, even a month. And so then they put in a $100 belt and then surplus the vehicle. So, and that was from our 4-H office. So I just wanted to be transparent about why we're asking for vehicles, because many of these, again, many of the people that are asking for vehicles, like for the 4-H grounds and for even the auditor, they have been using their own private vehicles, not even getting their mileage reimbursed or anything. So to me, that's not what we expect our county employees to do. And then it actually offsets their realistic budgets by not including, their vehicle, their mileage, and all that kind of stuff. And so I reached out to the different departments as well to try to figure out what their maintenance costs. And I know that Terry had sent me stuff for the highway department, but I didn't get it in time to put it on this sheet. But again, and then to turn around, and we did go, Doug and I did go out and meet with Terry yesterday and talk to him about, do they have room to hire maintenance work on vehicles to be done in-house? And we really figured that it would take 2 additional FTEs at a minimum of $80,000 to $100,000 for an expert mechanic. And we figured that we needed 2 if we were going to do that all in-house. Well, if you have a new vehicle, those are all under warranty. And then you don't have that expense. And then, where do you put these people? You have to have, like, the shop for all their big heavy equipment. They've got their Caterpillar software. They have all the stuff that they need. Well, then where would we put the 2 mechanics? They don't have room out there to do that. And so there would have to have a whole big discussion about, who do these people report to? And then just trying to get them hired. As everybody knows, that's already got stuff on the books, trying to get people hired. It's a huge expense. So again, if buying the new vehicles, they're under warranty, and I think that that's why the maintenance costs for the past 5 years have been so dramatically low. So I just wanted to bring that to the public, and I guess I guess I'm on board now that after I've seen the costs and the savings to buy a new vehicle, and not have a headache of a used vehicle. My husband bought a brand-new Ford. I shouldn't say Ford, but anyway, he bought a brand-new vehicle, and it was a lemon from the get-go. And it ended up replacing the entire engine. And so it was a lemon from day one. So if you have a used vehicle that you're buying, just like what 4-H tried to do to save some money, it just didn't work out. So I guess I'm for the budget that they really want on their budget to be compliant with what their budget needs really are. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty, and thanks for doing the work that you did on it.
Oh.
It kind of bears out what I thought it would bear out, that you swap one cost for another cost. So there's not really a perfect answer, but I think when the federal government or other state or local governments, when they surplus vehicles, they're doing it because those vehicles are worn out, not necessarily because they're no longer needed. So, you know, I guess I might hang myself here, but, I mean, if they're not good enough for other public service people to drive, then I don't know why they would be good enough for our employees to drive. And I do appreciate that our employees do use their own vehicles quite often. So I do thank you for bringing this forward and putting the work in on it.
Madam Chair, just gonna make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I went and talked with Al Larimer, who is the owner of a dealership in Sioux Falls, and he sells one of the sidelines that they sell, besides Volkswagen and Audis and Volvos and I don't know how many different models. But they sell a lot of high mileage cars. And an interesting thing of what they do is, besides putting a little polish on the outside, they, to be fair, they list in every car that what the potential replacement cost will be and what to expect from a high mileage car, from your transmissions to your brakes to your electrical, everything in there. And I asked him, I said, well, who would buy these things knowing that they have all of this potential cost? And he said, you'd be surprised, people buy lottery tickets all the time, and a lot of them are willing to, you know, take a chance, or they have maybe but he said they have a lot of vehicles that come back to their shop. So I think it is a roll of the dice when you buy something used, because, you know, when somebody puts a surplus item on the market, they didn't do it because it was functioning the way it should. They usually wanted to give somebody else an opportunity to participate in the headache, so.
And I do want to point out that on the screen, the $3,769.13, that's not the service costs on that one vehicle. Drew had sent me that it's for the entire sheriff's maintenance costs over 5 years. So it's not for that one vehicle, it's for their service or their maintenance costs over the past 5 years. And I didn't know how else to put it in there, but I just wanted to clarify that. State's attorney, I'm sorry, yes.
You know, Betty, I want to congratulate you, because this is kind of a eye-opener that we have 72 active vehicles. And I think, Linda, you mentioned a few weeks ago about having a centralized motor pool, but Betty, you went further and found out the cost. But I do think at some point in time in our future, we're going to have that, because our vehicles will continue to increase because personnel and amount of travel and everything else that goes along with growth. I mean, you're going to end up there someday. So I'm glad that we got some preliminary figures to work from now. Thank you.
Paul, how many employees do we have here in the county?
I believe with part-time, it's about 170,
Okay,
178.
all right. And we got 72 vehicles on the roster. Okay. I think the bigger issue is this fleet management. I think it would be nice if.
Commissioner, could you, thank you.
Would be nice if we could get the fleet management issue. That's what Linda was essentially getting at. You know, in the military, you have a motor pool, but it's not even about the military. You go to SDSU, you go to USD, you go to Minnehaha County. They all have a motor pool that you draw a vehicle from. You don't have vehicles necessarily per se that belong to one department. If an employee needs a vehicle that day, they, first of all, they plan ahead in advance. They reserve it with the person who runs the motor pool. and then they share it amongst other departments. And so I think the real issue here, the most immediate issue is, I don't think every department, we need to keep buying, you know, a new vehicle for both 4-H and auditor and all them. I think they can all share. And I think that that's what the public expects of public service and government. But I believe that if those departments just talk to each other, they said they're going to all these conferences. I mean, I'm surprised by how many conferences our people go to, but anyway, that's a whole nother issue. Apparently, we got to buy vehicles just to get people to go to the conferences, but I think our employees are definitely collaborative enough to be able to work with each other where they can share the vehicles. So I'm confident they could share.
Anybody else? All right, any public input on this agenda item?
Linda Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. First thing I need to do is apologize to you, Commissioner Otten. I called you by your first name the last time I was up here. Sorry about that. You know, I've been kind of looking around, and Commissioner Aaron's, you know, put it in words of what I was so concerned about. I don't believe every department needs their own vehicle so that they can get going someplace. You need someone in control of your vehicles. And some people don't treat cars well. I don't care if they have a new car. They don't treat it well. And I think that's very important when the public is spending this much money. The other thing is, it was mentioned last time about the election night. Minnehaha actually rents vans. And that's what they do on election night, to get all the equipment to all the places. It doesn't come out of anybody's personal car. They actually run around and give it. And I don't think, if your employees are not asking for reimbursement of their mileage, that is a fault of their department head. They need to, if they're going to be using their car for actual county business, they need to be paid for it. And that we need to track as a county. What of our employees actually using their cars for, as far as business, and tell them you expect that they get paid for that and the mileage. That should be in their contract somewhere. But the other thing is, like, the state's attorney was here last time, and he talked about they got their cars from the sheriffs. And the sheriff's department has 35 cars, and you know, so you're not buying somebody up 3 states away. You're actually reusing a car that should have been kept in good condition if our people are taking care of their vehicle as they should. As I said, buildings need maintenance, cars need maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on that agenda item? All right, if not, then we'll move on to our regular opportunity for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. If there's anyone that would like to come up and address the services or policies of the county, now would be the time to do so. All right, and then we have commissioner reports. Any commissioners have reports they'd like to make today?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
The other, on upcoming meetings and events on number 2 on the agenda, I did take part in that South Dakota County's membership meeting. They had a lot of things on the agenda for that, including the 605 update that the treasurer's office is using, and that has just been a nightmare for them. And the other thing is number 3, that's happening today up at the Project Prison Reset, South Dakota Military Heritage Alliance. And I had Paul put this up, and I've handed it out here as well, that That's one of the Sioux Falls locations that they're looking at, next to, it's between Benson Road and Rice Street in the red box. And then there's another one on the opposite side of that towards the interstate, that they're looking at. And so I've never publicly stated, my position on where the prison site should be until this morning. I am hoping and praying that the prison task force today takes off every Lincoln County site, including Worthing, and goes with the Sioux Falls sites going forward. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Betty. Any other commissioner reports?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I just going to report that Sherry and I will be traveling to a NACO conference coming up latter part of this week. And that's our annual conference where they'll elect a new slate of officers. We cover all of the legislative agendas that are on board, that affect county government, from tariffs to taxes to any other security, cybersecurity. So we'll be engaged next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday, I think, and look forward to coming back and giving you a report, so.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioner reports? All right, I'll just give an update on the courthouse, the structural steel, the primary structural steel, and the precast work is all complete, and I think right now the main focus is they've started on all of the roofing, and they're continuing to work on the stairwells, and the underground utility work on the site has also started. So it's definitely taking shape and changing the skyline here in Canton when you drive in. But anyway, that's just my update on that. All right, Commissioner Putnam, did you have anything? No. All right, with that, Joe, did you want to, do we need an executive session today? All right, no exec, then I just need a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.